Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Capital One Bank, New York Community Bank, Eastern Consolidated, M&T Bank, Sterling National Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Customers Bank, Ariel Property Advisors, Dime Community Bank. Additional funding is made possible by grants from AM Trust Title, AVR Realty Company, Avison Young, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Commercial Mortgage, Citizens Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Colliers International NYC, Cohen Equities, Collins Building Services, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handler Real Estate Organization, Handro Properties, Hodges Ward Elliott, Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Madison Realty Capital, Matone Group, Mercantile Bank, New Banks, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Meringoff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Organization, Moynihan Capital Partners, and these friends.
November 16th, 2001, a date that some individual starts a radio show talking about real estate. So today, close to the 1,000th show since inception, I'm bringing back certain people to provide their insight on the office market, east side, west side, all around the town. My guests include David Falk, president of the Tri-State region at Newmark Knight Frank, Bruce Mosler, the global chairman too, Cushman and Wakefield, Bruce Mosler, and the real global chairman of Brokerage, Steve Siegel of CBRE. You guys were with me in January of 2002. The show started in November of 2001. Let's talk about what's happened over the past 17 years.
My God, I mean, what's happened?
Wow.
Back in those days, I would get calls from people saying, I want to buy a building that nobody wants in a market that nobody's been to. And they existed. We were able to find them buildings in, obscure places, obscure locations. There is no such thing as an obscure location. In fact, today, I was talking to somebody about what's the next new frontier, and they said Staten Island. I said, I might have a little trouble believing in that because of the lack of transportation. But there's only New York. I mean, there's downtown, there's midtown, there's west side, there's east side.
But you know what, David...
Seward Park development.
David was talking before in the green room that in 2001, there was no WeWork. Look at WeWork today. How big are they as a tenant?
So, looking at that, WeWork now is the second largest non-government tenant in Manhattan. I think they're about 4.5 million square feet. They didn't exist. Co-working didn't exist. You had temporary office centers, which is a different model, but you've got companies that are growing everywhere, absorbing space, so they could then resell that to smaller users, or now an enterprise model, which would be mid-sized users. So they're really actually connecting the dots for these younger companies that don't want fixed commitments that landlords are looking for. So it's a whole new model.
Even older companies. But
how are landlords accepting WeWork today? I mean, they are today a presence. They are, as David just said, the amount of space that they're renting. You have to realize that they're going to continue to exist.
Well, let's go back a half a step, as I like to do. and talk about three fundamental changes to the marketplace over the last decade. First and foremost, you have today a marketplace where the TAMI sector is a dominant force. This was not the case a decade ago, largely in part to Mayor Blumberg's vision to create Hudson Yards and to create space that would be attractive to the TAMI sector, largely in part to, I think, the fact that Google made the move at 111 8th now 7 years ago, Steve, roughly,
More.
maybe more, maybe
Yeah.
a decade,
It was
maybe a decade.
5 probably.
But these
Gotta be 10, 12
these
years.
were significant and I think fundamental changes that affected this marketplace. The marketplace today is no longer driven by Midtown. There's many arguments are being made to say that the market shifted to Midtown West. And
So where is the premier location today? If you're a company, I mean,
I don't think you can-
there's no
interject.
premier location, or
No,
everybody looks
I think
everywhere?
there are
No.
locations.
It's a building by building discussion everywhere.
I think
It's not about
I
geography.
think my colleagues will agree that downtown's a phenomenon. It's become an incredibly active destination. It used to be a lever for deals in Midtown or elsewhere. All of a sudden, World Trade Center's on fire. It took a long time to overcome some of the issues related to 9/11. They have been overcome because it's about quality space, the retail, the residential. I mean, that's a whole other city within a city. Hudson Yards is creating another.
But you know, it's interesting about downtown. I think, and I'm sure they'll agree, that tenants that are looking, it's not that they say to us, I have to be in this submarket.
right.
You're going to take them out on
right.
7 tours over the span of 3 months.
Right.
And one day is downtown, one day is 6th Avenue.
That's right.
That never existed. It's one market now.
Exactly.
Here's the last of the, I think, absolutely profound changes that have taken place in the last decade. Today, companies want to go where they think they can win the war for talent. They want to relocate in an asset, in a building, in a campus where they think they can compete and win to procure their new, if you will, employees. No longer is Midtown driving downtown success. Downtown is unto its own now, a extraordinary neighborhood. As Steve says, the revitalization of Brookfield Place, the World Trade Centers, these things now are driving demand in the marketplace, and infrastructure investment all over the city has I think, made a profound difference today
What about,
in what
you
people
know,
are thinking about.
2001, the meatpacking district didn't exist. It was, I mean, with the exception of Chelsea Market, which took place at the end of the 90s.
Correct.
But what created the office market in the meatpacking district and other sections?
So when people say meatpacking for office, they really mean West Chelsea, because the large buildings, there really were 3 large buildings, 3.5. There's 111 8th, Chelsea Market, 85 10th, and the Milk Studios building. Those are all north of 14th Street. But what they did is they created, in one word, a vibe. So people, let's say in Flatiron, I remember a landlord saying to me 7 years ago, David, how are you getting $9 a foot more at Chelsea Market, 9th Avenue and 15th Street than I am at 18th and 5th Avenue? I said, because we have the vibe. And people want to be there. They want to be there after work. There's a flow of activity. There's restaurants. There's retail. It's just companies want to recruit and retain in a building that speaks to their image. And Chelsea Market, you walk into that building, it had a sense of community. It had activity. It wasn't a desolate location.
Well, it goes back to what Bruce said. They want to be where they can attract the kind of labor they need, and meatpacking district has that cachet.
And by the way, that's going to, I think that competition for the labor market is only going to increase as we see now wage increasing for the first time. Wages are increasing. The pool for talent is diminishing. So the need to focus on your talent pool and your ability to attract and retain is going to drive where people go more and more, not less and less.
Okay, another market or change in the world has been the change of industrial buildings to office buildings. Do we see that continuing, or is it reached its maximum?
I don't think there's any real significance in that particular market. I mean, it's not like there's 5 to 10 million feet of converted space. There's the factory in Long Island City. There's a couple of others in Long Island City.
There are more than that, Steve. There's
Well,
a variety of places.
but
Hudson
West Side.
Street, but-
You're really asking a different question. It's not; those don't exist in Manhattan.
right.
So,
Right, they
right?
exist in the-
So that's the bigger question.
But the
question
exception is some of the printing buildings that
but they're not
Right,
even
the
printing
printing
it.
buildings change differently.
You know,
John's
they're-
Far
those
West
are
Side,
attracting the
those are
best, vibrant companies now.
That's
The
right.
question really is, in which we can get to, Long Island City, Brooklyn, other areas, that Queens, even in the Bronx, can you take a former industrial building and make it office? And I think it goes back to what we said earlier. It does go back to recruiting and retaining. You have to have a story. So, Industry City's been successful because they created a story out there, taking a little of the Chelsea market-ish
Right,
and
but
added that
Industry
component.
City, if you look at it this way, part of it was done because of the real industry over there, the manufacturing, okay? And you have a supplemental office space market from the manufacturing companies who are there.
I think it's a little bit more complex than that. At the end of the day, Michael, I think Industry City, to David's point earlier, has created a vibe. At the end of the day, it's a destination location. There are outstanding economics available, and today, as companies look at their balance sheet, these things make a difference. I think if you look at another interesting fact about how New York has developed, if you look at how cities within cities achieve success, Rock Center was a city within a city. Hudson Yards is a city within a city. The World Trade Center site and Brookfield Place are cities within cities. Industry City has some of those qualities: infrastructure, retail, vibe, all those
now,
things
for us who
matter.
are old enough,
You're the agent.
do you remember?
No, but I have done a few deals there. I'm just trying to help David
I have
out.
to be
Thanks,
a
appreciate it.
contrarian, okay? I have to be contrarian.
Okay, I'm
Your
happy, little-
Your focus on this industrial conversions, loft-style buildings that were factories, are a fraction,
Yeah.
minuscule fraction of the office supply in the 5 boroughs, 4 boroughs.
So here's a question. I, many years ago, when Bruce was a child, used to work at 441 9th Avenue. I
Great
worked for
story.
a retail company who occupied the entire building. We had our office there. We had our industrial there. It was called Hartfield Zodies. At the same time, there was a company called Kresge, or S. Klein, who occupied currently Brookfield West.
Yeah, the Corvette building on
Okay,
Fifth
the
Avenue.
Corvette.
Sure, there's conversions.
What happened?
441 Ninth
Let the
is
man
now-
ask the question,
No, I don't
though.
care about his question. You really care about his question?
That's your agency.
I would
Take it.
yeah,
I want to take it. It's my agency.
okay,
It's
take
his
it.
agency. You
Take
go.
it. You got it.
Let's talk about 441.
When that building
What a
was
layup
built,
that
when
was.
that building was bought recently, a year or so ago, it was an office building. Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield. So long ago,
They converted it.
transitioned
No,
from an
no
industrial
question
building.
they converted. But the
I mean,
neighborhood.
five Manhattan West was $1.95 a square foot.
Correct.
Was the rent
but
there
you
when
know
it
what?
first built.
It was
the old
9th
Midtown
Avenue,
Mart.
and you were 2 blocks away from Penn Station at that time. You were 5 blocks away from Port Authority. So you had the roots of transportation. What took so long? I mean, you had Robert Hall.
Because at that time, you didn't have the acceptance of it as a office location. It was built industrially.
You also didn't have that sector, the tech
Right.
and media sector that wants to work that way.
That's-
that didn't exist. 2001, 32% of the Midtown Manhattan was all financial services, and they were, I think, 32% of the tax roll. And thankfully, we have a much more diverse, tenant base today, and they're the ones that want that. They
Wait,
want.
2001, did
David-
we have any Brooklyn office market? We had Metro Tech and we had a...
No, but what we didn't, Michael, here's where David's going. I agree. The bottom line is the TAMI sector was a fraction of the market. When we talk about that, the technology, advertising, media, and information-based companies weren't driving the market. It was financial services. They were driving the market for decades. Okay? 15 years ago, 10 years ago, take your pick, the shift occurred. And by the way, the reason Midtown West is so successful at the moment is we've had a dearth of new product for decades. This city has had the same amount of square footage. We've added no new product for many, many years. This is the first of now what we've seen in new development, and it was sorely needed. Average age of product over 75 years. Midtown West right now is the beneficiary of the growth, primarily through the TAMI sector, and now the bolt-on is we're seeing the financial services follow as well.
So one thing
it was overdue.
To add to that,
Overdue.
in 2001 range, when we said tech, we actually said .com then.
Right.
Yeah,
We said .com
we didn't
because
mean
they were
broad definition.
pets.com and these companies that didn't exist anymore, and they were $20 million of venture capital money. They went and buy new Knoll furniture, and the tags were on the on the chairs 6 months later. Now you're at 5 Manhattan West, J.P. Morgan Chase Digital.
That's right.
MasterCard,
Amazon.
Digital, these are all credit tenants. This is not
But didn't we have
someone in
Lower
a
Fifth
garage.
Avenue, the same thing? Lower Fifth Avenue.
Well, you had Midtown South, which became, I guess, the least vacant market in all sectors.
It is.
From
In the
all-
country.
Still
In the
the
country.
least vacant
And
market.
now these tenants who can't really go there have looked for the next great horizon, or as he says, space with a cachet, space that is different, that can attract the employees. 5 Manhattan West, Midtown West in its entirety. Hudson Yards was new product, so it's flight to efficiency and a quality. And then, of course, the big issue is going to be what's left behind.
So, and I think on that, because everyone keeps asking what's the Hudson Yards effect, and we all get this question all the time, I really do believe that the landlords of those buildings are going to reinvent these buildings in a much more of a hospitality mindset to be better, meaning walk into the buildings today, many of these buildings are just, I saw them behind a desk, very sterile.
I'm talking about the older supply.
The older supply is going to have to reinvent themselves in a
there's no
way
question.
that stands out.
Well, 1271 is doing that.
Great.
4 Times Square, which was built in 1999, is renovating to the tune of $100+ million, a 20-year, not even a 20-year-old building, to do just what David's talking about: outdoor space, conferencing center, a cafeteria, to try to create an experience when people go to the building and to attract tenants. All along Avenue Americas are going to
Again,
like
people today want to be in a neighborhood, and they want that live, work, play effect. They want mass transportation. They want the ability to walk outside and have everything at their fingertips. That's part of the millennial generation. But truth be told, we should not be surprised as to why Manhattan West and Hudson Yards have taken off. It was that dearth of product, the ability to get more efficient as you relocate. And by the way, let's be clear. What's driving most relocation outside of the TAMI sector is the opportunity to get more efficient. These new buildings provide, through column-free and floor-to-ceiling glass, light and air, efficiencies you can't get in the older product. To
most
David's
people
point,
relocating there are taking significantly less space.
There are also those
outside of the TAMI sector, that's the rule of thumb.
Let's also remember those were also large blocks of space. If someone wanted 500,000 square feet, there weren't that many choices. No. This was efficient and it was state of the art and it was forward thinking, and it started making sense.
The market needed it.
I want to bring up the Amazon effect. People, there's this talk about Amazon possibly picking New York or Newark. In addition to picking the potential location, which
or Washington or Atlanta.
No,
or
I'm
yeah, I bet the Eagles. I will bet against the Amazon coming here.
But forget Amazon coming here. Amazon has leased close to 1 million square feet
Correct.
over here, right? Yeah. They're here. They're in there.
There's no question.
They've got
They're
a
having
beachhead.
their
They all
effect
do.
over there.
Facebook has a beachhead. Amazon a beachhead. We already talked about
Salesforce
Google.
has a major beachhead over there.
Right.
And that's all about the same thing Bruce mentioned earlier. It's all about the quality of labor that they need to attract, and they're kind of drained it out in the Silicon Valley.
Who would have thought years ago Cadillac and Anheuser-Busch would open up in Manhattan? They opened up over the last 4 years.
If you really want to talk about where Cadillac is, that's a former printing building.
Yeah.
So you're talking about an entity that had these heavy presses. Printing's changed. There's no more linotype machines. There are no more web presses. The world has changed. The automation has changed the world.
If you notice, the Cadillac advertisements are always on a cobblestone street in a very gritty environment because that's what they're trying to attract the young urban workforce.
What do you see about the Williamsburg office space?
None of my tenants in the last 3 years have expressed any interest.
But there really wasn't any space. It's almost, the question is, was it the demand or the supply? So there is now going to be space. So 25 Kent is going up, and it's going to be terrific. It's 500,000 square feet, facing the water, next to the William Vale. It's the epicenter. You also have other things that are being developed in Williamsburg and throughout Brooklyn. And now the test will be how deep is the market for this. But there really never was space. That's really for small tenants or large tenants in that sector.
But there was
in Williamsburg.
Just not much. But look, I think to David's point, I'm actually going to reinforce what you said. I think if what we saw in Williamsburg was incubator companies, small businesses, there really wasn't the space for a major company to make a major commitment. And the issue will become, at the end of the day, are the major players looking to diversify? And if they are, it would be, in my view, be largely because of labor, view, or rent. I'm not sure that's going to be the case.
What about
the major players seem to want to be expanding right here in New York City, where the labor pool is. In Manhattan. And more importantly, in Manhattan. Thank you.
They want to expand right here in Manhattan. And I'm going to tell you something else, my concern for the epicenter and these brand new buildings in Brooklyn. There's no bargain. I mean, by going to Williamsburg or Brooklyn, they're going to be comparable.
But if you want a large, okay, so if your client said, I want a large floor plate and I want a forward-thinking, cool environment that that I can get a block of space, and you want 70,000-foot floors, we start scratching our head. You know, I don't know where we obtain that.
So
Yes.
I
think there's not a lot of that space. You're 100% right.
No,
I don't think there's a lot of those.
But the question will become, will the next deal be something like another Pier 57 for a major tech sector company, or will they choose
let's talk about Pier 57.
to go?
You have a 675,000 square foot office building over there being constructed.
You mean Dock 72?
Dock 72.
Yes.
Right? 700,000 square feet.
Right.
WeWork takes 250,000 square feet. You still got to occupy 450,000 square feet. This is not Industry City. This is a much more inconvenient location than Industry City is. It's not.
You think Hudson Yards is convenient?
I have a problem.
Oh, Steve, you can't compare the two.
No. But I'm just talking about it initially. The idea of that type of office development with one subway line, which didn't exist at the time.
This is what I said.
But you were within a
unheard
block
of.
of 17 subway lines and the most traveled hub in North America, Penn Station.
You're within
A
a
long
block
block.
at Hudson Yards. Please.
2 blocks.
Bruce,
2 blocks.
You,
Two
Bruce,
long
I don't know
blocks.
If you can walk those.
Not
I'm just saying
within
you
2
can't
blocks.
compare the transportational
You're not
hubs.
within 2 blocks.
So if you walk, you'll take.
walk with
if
me.
you
I'll
walk,
walk
you'll
with
stop, you'll rest, you'll catch your breath, and you'll keep walking.
You'd have to get it at 9. You'd have to start walking at 7.
Do you see Staten Island as a possibility?
I told you, somebody today or yesterday told me that's the next great market. Now they're talking about both residential and potentially commercial. There are beaches, there are amenities. I always hang my hat on transportation.
Don't forget, you could still go to some buildings downtown Manhattan, some B or B minus buildings, and there are blocks of space coming that you can rent at fairly attractive rents. So you don't necessarily have to leave Manhattan if you wanted to find
I tell you
downtown.
about
There's also
I'm
going to
not
be
selling the trade
substantial.
center,
Go
but I
ahead.
mean, that's some of the finest buildings in the city of New York. The new product there.
No question.
And with the incentives provided, which are roughly $7 a square foot, it's one of the cheapest or least expensive. Cheapest is a terrible word. Least expensive deals in the city of New York for new product. Plus, you have some renovated product like 180 Maiden Lane. Where we got a lease out at $49 a square foot.
Right,
But you're making David's point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I agree with
that's what I'm
it.
doing.
I agree with both of you. I think long before you see Staten Island emerge, I think that there are assets downtown. There's still assets that
Let's
can be
talk about
and property that can be
another
developed on the far west
phenomenon.
side. I see that first.
We were talking about in the
Positive.
green room that in 2001, it was like the 5 families, the Corleone families,
Right.
the families who own the business. The world has changed. Look at the companies who have come in to buy property over here, or new entities. Like there wasn't a Savannah in 2001. You didn't have the Canadians at the number over here. SL Green was a company with B properties. I mean, the world has changed today.
It's a much more institutional landscape. And if there's an entrepreneurial owner, then you have institutional capital behind he or she.
That's what it is.
So
There's a
it's
lot.
an institutional landscape today. There's no question. And the REITs have been driving, I think, that change in large part, and new development.
You know, since we're on the region, Steve, what happened to New Jersey? I mean, you were there many years ago. I mean, it hasn't really.
When I was there, the rent. I just spoke to somebody.
They had the ferry.
Who said the rents are finally moving up again. But if you do a cost of living factor or present value, the rents are no different than when I did my first office deal there
Same
in
thing
the
in
late
White
70s.
Same as White Plains.
Yeah, same as White Plains. And
It's almost like
and
running in
also
quicksand.
Literally no new product being delivered, and just the old product line.
What happened to the Stanford market, which was Everybody wanted to be in Stanford.
Sure, UBS, you want to rent that building? It's virtually, it's empty. It's 1 million square feet. It was a great idea that didn't work. Again, to David's point, to Bruce's point, labor. You can't, it required also that reverse commute to take care of the density of office buildings, both built, occupied, and then soon vacated. Because they couldn't.
One more point about the suburban markets, Stanford or others in general. The thing that happened is called urbanization. The young worker, the millennial, decided they want to be in an urban environment. That same thing we've been all of us have touched upon. The need and desire to be in a 24/7 environment with everything at their fingertips. These young people would rather pay more, live in less space, or double up to be in the urban environment.
Bruce, but part of the reason why the transit-oriented developments in New Rochelle and White Plains are doing well is that people are commuting into the city if they're right nearby. Another phenomenon.
There are a few key hubs in suburbia
another
that will
phenomena that
or
I
may
want to
do
bring
okay.
out, which I know you're very involved with, and I know your organization is involved with, is in 2001, you didn't have health institutions opening up ambulatory surgery centers, taking space like 400,000 square feet like NYU, correct?
I would like my colleague's opinion on, to me, what has the potential to be the next, or at some point in the near future, major office developable area is Harlem. I really see Harlem with its transportation, both commutable from anywhere from Midtown, et cetera, for the labor pool coming from the north, stopping at Metro
Steve,
North.
you have to remember, the 125th and Park, Vornado owned the property. You know, it's right on the train.
A while ago, and it had Major League Baseball, they had a variety of tennis.
It goes back to what we've been talking about all day, which is this whole, people want to be in an epicenter of activity and to recruit and retain, and that goes back to, you know, will that fall into that category?
Infrastructure is being created, the restaurants, the clubs, the places for kids
So, you know,
to
you
hang
mentioned
out.
like what happened since 2001. There was no High Line. And think of what Manhattan has widened itself
right,
out.
with the Chelsea,
you're going out to
with the redevelopment, the rezoning of Chelsea. You've seen one last question before we close. What do you think about the rezoning in Midtown South? What effect that's going to have?
Midtown East.
Midtown East.
Yeah.
I know a lot of landlords that have got termination clauses in their leases. The Resnick/Rubens on Madison Avenue, they think in 6-7 years they'll maybe be incentivized to tear down buildings. I think it may spur some new development, but I think you got to get rid of the space that's being vacated.
What about the Pfizer
first.
building on 42nd Street?
But it's complicated because a lot of these projects have a building next door. The two have to come together. You have to vacate both, lose income for many, many years.
That's
By the way,
that's
David
David
just hit the key, I think, answer. East Side rezoning, terrific idea. A, zoning rights are very expensive. B, to vacate the property, carry the property, redevelop the property. By the time you're done with all that,
you have to have
and
big-
then look
deep
at your
pockets.
economics, it's going to be extremely difficult.
I did an analysis for the landlord that owned a building on
He
Lexington
did the
Avenue.
analysis himself?
I know how.
Well,
I had-
All right, you had 18 people.
There we go.
He has to summarize.
The bottom
Sorry,
line,
you don't have to
the
summarize.
bottom line, it didn't work. Exactly what these guys are saying. By the time they
It's
vacated the
economics.
building,
It's
tore it down, built it, leased it,
Mr.
they were gonna lose a
Mosler,
fortune.
Mr. Siegel, I believe you were on like the 8th show. Today you're on the 998th.
Yeah, why? Why
We thought we were the 1,000.
Why are we not
What
on the
happened?
Oh, wait, you said it was 1,000.
You got us here on the 1,000.
I want to know who's
It's a
on
false
the 1,000.
pretense.
We'll tell you later.
Unbelievable.
I'd like
I'm
to
taking
thank
the cup.
David Falk, Bruce Mosler, Steve Siegel. See you next week.
Thank you for
Thank
having me.
you, Michael.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.